how long is this process going to take? When's the next stage? So how long might it take to catch or look for any evidence, if there is any? What would be the next stage? Would it be Trump Jr. that they would look into? How long before we see Trump having to square off
or criminal
against
charges
something?
even, yeah.
Or criminal charges, yeah.
Well, as dramatic as the words grand jury may be, the reality now is, as we go into the less dramatic but essential gathering and presentation of evidence, which could be weeks, could even be months, because they're extremely complex affairs. Now, what you'll have then are two processes: this very steady formal process, and then the more informal, people leaking to the media, people presenting information that the White House will then say is untrue. And those two processes will collide in congressional hearings this autumn. Personally, Donald Trump will try to front this out. He himself cannot face criminal charges while he is still president, but his advisors could within the next year, and I think by this time next year, Donald Trump will probably resign to avoid impeachment.
By this time next year, yeah. You believe? I mean, we'll just reiterate that, Scott, because that's an extraordinary thing to actually put a timeline on it. As a professor of American politics, so as they say over here, you know your onions. You think this time next year Donald Trump will resign rather than face impeachment?
I'm happy to join you on this date next year, and I'll say I'm wrong if he's here. But I think there's two reasons why I think he'll go. I think one is I think the formal process will begin to close, as it did during Watergate, on some of his close aides, if not Trump himself. But I think the second is the political calculation. That is, this is a man who has been unable to pass a single piece of major legislation, and he'll continue to have problems with legislation. And I think that Republicans who face re-election in 2018 either have to decide whether to possibly sync with Trump or to cut themselves loose. When they cut themselves loose, then impeachment becomes a possibility and maybe a probability. And I think he'll go before he faces the humiliation of that.
Fascinating stuff. For Professor Scott Lucas, we've got a date, haven't we, for this time next year, whatever happens. Thank you very much indeed.
Great to hear from you this morning.